There's a switch inside every man that once flipped turns him from passive to powerful. Semen retention is that switch. The longer you hold, the more primal energy builds, not the kind that just fuels lust, but the kind that sharpens instinct, amplifies aggression, and upgrades your presence. Retention reactivates the ancient circuitry built for survival, leadership, and drive. You start waking up with purpose. You train harder, focus longer, speak deeper, and move with weight. You stop avoiding resistance and begin hunting it. This is what people call beast mode. But it's not just intensity. It's clarity backed by biological fire. And the difference is obvious the moment you walk in the room. But there's one mistake that kills it all: releasing without control. One relapse doesn't just drain energy, it disrupts rhythm. It resets dopamine sensitivity, weakens the nervous system, and softens the fire you spent weeks building. You may still look the same, but internally something changes. That edge dulls, that calm becomes scattered. The mind starts chasing again instead of creating. This is why the beast doesn't just retain energy, he respects it. Without that discipline, the transformation slips through your fingers. It's not about perfection. It's about not breaking the momentum that makes you unstoppable. Because once it's lost, climbing back feels like crawling uphill with weights tied to your soul. Section 1. Primal System Overdrive. There's a system in your brain that was designed for war, for survival, for chasing until the world bent to your will. It's called the mesolimbic loop, the circuit that connects desire to action. Most men have let it rust. They feel sparks of ambition but never move. Why? Because the drive is disconnected from the body. Retention rewires this. It doesn't just store energy, it links energy to motion. Suddenly, the gap between wanting and doing begins to shrink. You don't need external pressure. You feel pulled into the fight, pulled into the grind, pulled into everything that demands effort, and you stop hesitating. This system was never meant to run cold. The masculine frame is built to chase, not to sit and overthink. But when release becomes routine, the mesolimbic circuit gets confused. You feel desire, but the body stays still. You dream big, but you don't move. Retention brings heat back into that loop. Dopamine stops spiking artificially. It starts aligning with real work, with delayed rewards, with earned wins. Your energy becomes directional. You don't wait for motivation. You wake up with restlessness in your bones. That's locomotor drive. The need to act, to sweat, to move forward without needing a finish line in sight. In this state, everything changes. You train harder, not because you're told to, but because your nervous system needs it. You keep pushing when others drop off, not out of pride, but because stillness now feels unnatural. Retention gives you that motor, not a short burst of willpower, but a consistent engine that runs underneath everything you do. This is what separates those who fade after a few wins from those who build empires, not just intensity, but sustained, pressure-driven effort. The beast doesn't rest because it's being watched. It rests only after the hunt is done. When you retain, you're not just stacking testosterone. You're reconnecting the fire in your gut with the movement of your limbs. The brain says go and the body obeys. You become the kind of man who doesn't daydream, he deploys. This is a version of you that doesn't need inspiration, doesn't need comfort, and doesn't need perfect conditions. All it needs is the signal, and retention makes sure that signal is always clear. Keep moving, whether it's a gym floor, a business room, or a battlefield. Your system stays on, and the man who stays on outlasts everyone else. Section 2. Dominance Conditioning. You don't need to say a word. The second you walk in, the room shifts. That shift isn't random. It's the behavioral echo of dominance. Semen retention builds this echo over time. You start holding eye contact longer, speaking less but with more weight, standing still while others fidget. These aren't tactics, they're biological signals, and people respond to them without even knowing why. It's not about being louder. It's about holding a frequency so strong it disrupts weaker ones. You become the gravity in the room. The nervous systems around you begin syncing to yours, adjusting their pace, tone, and behavior without realizing they've submitted. Most men don't have this effect because their energy is scattered. Their signals are inconsistent. They leak vitality through habits that erode presence, constant stimulation, dopamine addiction, and sexual depletion. Retention tightens those leaks. It centers your energy and stabilizes your rhythm. You stop rushing your words, you stop chasing reactions, you start speaking only when it matters, and with that shift, conversations bend around you. Even people who outrank you socially or professionally begin mirroring your cadence. That's how behavioral dominance spreads, not by command, but by control of self. When you're retained, your body language gets heavier. You take up space without trying. Your movements are deliberate, slow, and grounded. Others start shrinking without knowing why. Their voices soften, their eye contact breaks sooner. Their nervous systems, trained over years to defer to strength, instinctively follow the more regulated rhythm. You're not playing mind games, you're radiating internal order. And that order, especially in chaotic environments, draws attention. Not the attention that flatters, but the kind that recalibrates the entire room. You become the reference point. Everyone else just adjusts. This is dominance conditioning at its core. You're not telling people to respect you, they feel like they should. And that feeling isn't emotional, it's neurological. Retention reshapes how others perceive your authority. They stop interrupting, they wait to respond, they shift their stance to match yours. Over time, you realize the power isn't in demanding space, it's in becoming the man who owns it by default. Your behavior doesn't change the world, it changes how the world behaves around you. And that's how real influence works, not through noise, but through presence that makes everything quieter. Section 3. The fatal mistake. Most men make the same mistake after discovering the power of retention. They feel the fire rise and they confuse it for purpose, but raw drive without direction is dangerous. You start moving fast but with no target. You train harder, push louder, chase more, but the mind becomes chaotic. The aggression surges but it has no outlet. And that's when the damage begins. You snap at people who care about you. You act impulsively in business, in relationships, in your own routine. The beast wakes up, but instead of becoming a weapon, it turns into a storm. Retention without purpose turns fire into wildfire. It doesn't build, it burns. There's another trap, one that feels like discipline, but isn't. You hold for weeks, maybe months. Your nervous system charges up like a live wire. Your eyes sharpen, your breath thickens, and your thoughts carry weight. But without structure, without breathwork, a clear plan, or an outlet, that charge overwhelms the system. You grow irritable, sleep suffers, you start chasing intensity just to manage the pressure, and eventually you crash. A single poor decision, a relapse, a destructive impulse, and just like that, the mountain you were climbing disappears under your feet. Retention isn't about how long you hold, it's about what you build with the energy you're holding. And here's the hard truth. Energy that isn't moved gets stuck, and what gets stuck rots. Retention is meant to be transmuted into ideas, into art, into physical action, clear systems, and real progress. When you hold, and hold without expressing, your system becomes clogged. You become restless, bitter, explosive. This is where men self-sabotage. They cheat on partners, they destroy routines, they burn down the very foundations they were building. Not because they're weak, but because they mistook power for mastery. Retention gives you the bricks, but if you don't start building, those bricks turn into weights. And eventually, they crush you.